Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back to working over here on the horizontal boring mill, trying to get this thing where I can use it for a job coming up, and wanting to take my time and make sure we take care of a few little things along the way, and not just get it put back together to use, but have it where I hopefully won't have to take it back apart for a little while, at least until we decide to rebuild this thing, if we even decide to do that down the road. But right now, the next step is we need to get our table back on this. So this table that is off right now basically rides on these boxways here on the piece. It goes from one to the other. You put your work on this, and this is what you're basically boring off of. It will move, of course, up and down the table, similar to a cross slide on a lathe, and it'll also move in and out. So there's a crank here on the front where you can move it in and out. Now, as far as moving it down, there's not a rack and a handle like on your carriage on a lathe. It's all got to be done. Well, I guess you can crank on the lead screw on the end or on the front, but through power feeds and whatever. But different than a lathe, but yeah, kind of similar in some ways. This is it. I pulled this thing off, and what I want to do is I want to take it apart, do a good inspection on it, make sure there's no problems in this thing, and then get it cleaned up, painted, put back together, and if there is any problems in there, we will address them. But the only way I'm going to know there's a problem is if we get in there and take it apart. Now, this thing likely, truly needs to be scraped back in and rebuilt. Probably not going to do that. I'm not going to say never. It really probably depends on what we find when we get in here. And this is something that we could go ahead and take the time to scrape in right now, and it really wouldn't be a big issue as far as going back on the machine. We could fine tune stuff later on whenever we rebuild the whole machine, but I'm hoping we're not going to need to do that, at least not right now. So anyway, let's get in here, take a look at this, and come up with a game plan on how to take it apart. I already know of a couple of little issues, and I got to decide whether I want to address them or just let them slide, but we'll figure that out kind of as we go. Let's look at it. So before we delve too deep into this, let's take a look at what we've got, take a look at the construction, how it's made, and kind of come up with a game plan on getting it taken apart. So we're going to start at the bottom and kind of work our way up. There's the saddle down here on the bottom, and these ride on those boxways, basically where the sawhorses are right now. It's kind of mimicking the ways on the machine. And on this front one, it's got a piece in the front, and there's a gib in the front, and then I think in the back it's just a straight piece, and that rides on that way. Of course, the top slide on it. So this one here is basically coming in contact on three sides. On the back one, it's just the top and the back, that's all. And really the back is just kind of guiding it as it goes along. All of your adjustment, everything is on this front way up here. And again, this gib, there's a gib in here, tapered gib that's adjustable so that you can adjust that for wear and etc. on the machine. You come up off of the saddle and you come to the cross slide, and that's this table here, and it moves in and out this way. So you got, again, boxways. When I say boxways, these are square ways. They're not, triangular shaped. You got a gib on this side, and it's basically just kind of catching it on either side. There's also a hook on the bottom. These basically just unbolt, but that keeps the table from lifting up. It's not really a bearing surface so much as it is just to keep it from lifting up should it come to do that. And here's your cross slide nut. So there's a long lead screw that goes in here, or cross slide screw rather, that goes into a nut that I think is probably about right here in the center of the table. And when you crank on the handle up here in the front, that basically moves the cross slide and in and out. Now, one thing that I will note is this front end here has been boogered up. I don't know who did this in the past, but someone has made a handle for this. This is not the original handle. Let me zoom in there and kind of show you this. So this is not the original handle. This is something that has been repaired. Looks like this front piece maybe got knocked off. I'm not exactly sure. They welded a key in there that this handle kind of goes into, and that's what drives that. Originally, there was a little splined area that came off of here, and there would have been a handle that went up on there. We've got several other examples of that on the machine. I'll show you one so you can kind of see what it's supposed to look like. So this is what it's supposed to kind of look like. Again, this would have just been kind of splined. When you get up underneath this cover, you can really kind of see it. Actually, on some of my other rods, you can see how it is, but they just came in there with a horizontal milling cutter and just went in, and it just kind of flares out in the back. But your handle would have gone up on a centerpiece like this, and there would have been splines in there that engaged. Now this homemade one here, you see they kind of made it where you got one spline in there. I think that it originally would have had multiples on there. Again, this handle has kind of been jury rigged. I would really like to kind of see what the handle is supposed to look like off of this, finding someone that's got an original one, because this one is, like I said, it is not anywhere close to it. You know, it was a shop-made solution to a problem that they had, and it worked and has worked for a long time, but I would like to get it back closer to what would have been originally on here, if I can find an example of that to copy and see if it's something I can make. So the first thing I want to do is get this cross feed screw out. And basically what's going on here is that there is a nut somewhere up underneath here in the base, the stationary part of this. And then this is all attached to this boss in the front. When you turn this, it's basically pushing and pulling this front flange here against that nut that's down in there. I think to get this out, all I need to do is unscrew these bolts here, and I should be able to back it out, and this whole assembly will just come out. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get these bolts out, and we'll give it a try. All right, I saw that kind of loose there. I'm just gonna let that fall down that way, and we will put our handle on here, and that should unscrew. Let's pull this thing out. The threads on that look pretty good. We got a thrust bearing in here. That thrust bearing is kind of toasty. We'll probably want to replace that if I can find a replacement. There's probably another thrust bearing up underneath here, I'm guessing. Let's continue pulling it on out. All right, that should support it. And we're going to continue unscrewing it. There it comes. All right. So with the screw out, that's going to kind of allow this to pick up, I'm pretty sure, but we do need to go ahead and get it where it'll release. So there is a flat gib that runs all up and down this side, and these bolts on the side, these basically allow you to adjust that. This one's not a tapered gib. I don't think it's tapered. I think it's a flat gib. So because of that, there's adjustment screws that you can adjust individually. And the way these are is there's a nut on the outside of this that is just a lock nut, and then on the inside there is a socket set screw that we should be able to just pull out once we kind of take that lock nut off. So I'm going to go in here and loosen up all of the lock nuts. All we got to do is just loosen them a little bit. Let's use the box end. And now we'll zip down through here and pull all these out. Now it looks like there's also a screw on the front and the back. I'm not sure what that is. It may be You know what I bet that is? I bet there's a hole drilled in this, and that just basically captures it so that the gib doesn't slide back and forth. That's what I'm guessing, but that's got to come out. Let me get a screwdriver and pull those out. There's one on the front and one down this end. Sorry, I'm in the way of the camera. That one's out as well. We got that done. There are bolts up under the bottom here that hold this. There's just a rod or a piece of flat iron up here. Again, that comes down and hooks up underneath the bottom of the gib, and that keeps the table from lifting. So see if we can get those off as well. And looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. I'll get these out. I'll bring you back here in just a minute. There we go. All right, there's another bar like this on the other side, up underneath the bottom. There's not a gib on the other side. I'm gonna pull that one out, and I think we'll be ready to maybe pull this table off. I got to looking at this table, and there was a bolt over on the front side. It wasn't in the side you were looking at a while ago. But I was like, okay, what does that bolt go to? And I remembered I had some blueprints for this machine. So I went and pulled these out. And if you look, there's a clamp that clamps to the other side of this, this boxway in here. So it's basically captured on both sides on this one way here. And what I need to do is I need to loosen that up. I don't want to take it all the way out because I don't want that to drop out. I want it to stay up in there. But I do need to loosen it so it's not too tight. And I think once I do that, we'll be able to come in here and just pick the whole table off and leave the base up underneath it. Let's see what we can do. And here you can see that bolt we were talking about. And yeah, it's not very tight. I just want to loosen that up a little bit. That we'll make sure that that doesn't grab when we try to pick that up. All right, I think we're ready for a lift. Let me get it ready. I've got some eye bolts going down into the T-slots on this table. We got some shackles, some straps. Got the gantry crane picking up from 4 points. And with any luck, this table's just gonna pick straight up off and kind of leave the saddle down below. See what happens. Yeah, looks like it's gonna come up. Well, the back side's coming up. Yeah, there it comes. Now there's a gib right here. I want to go ahead and get that taken out before it falls out. There's the flat gib. Let's take this table on up. Taking a quick look at these cross slides. All right, I have to look at them closer, but there's nothing that's jumping out as there's a big problem. We'll get in here a little bit and take a better look at it, and I can kind of see some of the works on the inside in here. And let's get this thing out of the way. I think for right now, we're just gonna put this over kind of back on the machine just to get it out of the way. Just move the gantry down. And put some 2x4s up underneath this across the table for that to rest on. And we'll just lower this down. This thing's kind of nasty. I'm gonna start with my shop vac here and see if we can't get that cleaned up a little bit. Let's see if I can get these ways cleaned up, and I'm gonna do a quick inspection on these, kind of like I did on the main piece over there with a straight edge and some feeler gauges, just to kind of get a quick idea of how much wear is in these. So a couple things to just kind of note while we got this thing torn down here. First off, on these cross slides ways, we've got the oil grooves in here. So this is just a place for the oil to distribute. There's going to be a place to put oil in, and it's going to drip down in here. But having this oil groove kind of ground in that way gives the oil a place to spread out and make sure you get lubrication. Under ideal conditions, you'll always have this loaded up with oil, and then as the table moves, it just kind of moves it onto these flat boxways. The underside of the top has the exact same oil groove put it in as well. And we do have a little bit of scoring. Oh, can you see it in the screen? Yeah, over here. There's a little bit of scoring in there where a piece of trash got in there at some point in time and drug back and forth. You know, while that's not ideal, as long as it's cleaned out, this basically just becomes another oil groove. I'm not too worried about that. It's below the surface. So, you know, if it was something that was raised up, and we'll stone this and make sure there's nothing up, but it won't have any impact on the operation of everything. I know a lot of people get upset about these scoring in their ways, and yeah, ideally you don't want them in there, but it's not that big of a deal. So in the center part here, also just kind of an interesting thing to look at, you've got this gear, and there's a little drive plate here. When you pull this handle up on the side, notice it engages and disengages that. So there's that feed screw that goes all the way down over here. And that thing is, whenever the table's turning, that's turning. And this is basically a kind of a worm that meshes with that screw. And whenever that screw is turning, this is turning. But whenever you engage the dog, it then turns the whole cross slide. And that's basically your power feed. So if you want to just turn it on manual, you flip a switch over there, you turn on manual. There's also some rapids, so that if you want to just, you know, move it without having to sit there and crank it the whole way, you can cheat, pull that handle up, and that'll do that. Real short action there, going back and forth. Game plan. This thing is nasty. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it outside. I'm going to pressure wash this thing, get it cleaned up real good. I need to get all the paint stripped off of it and get it repainted. And before I do that, I think what we're going to do is like I said a minute ago, I'm going to put a straight edge on here and just check these ways to see how much wear is in them. They don't look terrible, but we can take a quick measurement. So I've got a 4-foot Camelback straight edge here. This is one from my collection, and this is actually one that I had reworked a while back. I actually re-scraped this one flat. It has been tested over on my surface plate, and it's in great shape. It's been verified, I know. And basically what this is a very flat surface. Again, it's been calibrated against my surface plate, which is a known flat surface. And we're going to use this as a reference over on these ways to check and see how much where we got in here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll hinge this, and I'm noticing that it's actually hinging about right there on that side. And if that's flat, it'll hinge about a third of the way in on both sides, and it is. So, I mean, this is telling me right off that this way is pretty good. We'll get some feeler gauges and check it, see if I can get any shims up underneath it. And this is a piece of 1/1000th shim stock, and I'm just going to go down through here, and it's not going up underneath it. All right, so that's as thin of a piece of shim stock as I've got. So let's go ahead and do the other side here. Check it as well. Again, I'll hinge it. This one is hinging right in the center, which tells me that the center is a little bit high, and probably my ends are low. So if I can put my shim stock, you know, the shim stock kind of starts under, but doesn't go fully under that side. So same kind of thing going on here. Like I said, that 1/1000th shim stock will kind of start up underneath it, but not go all the way. So all in all, that looks pretty darn good. I'm real happy with that. What I may do on these, since they're so close anyway, is go ahead and scrape them and get them perfectly flat. It won't take very long to do that. Before I do that, though, I want to check the mating ways to see what kind of shape they're in, and we'll make a decision on that. I got one side of this sling, and that should pick up 1/2 of it. We'll get it up and over and set it back down on itself. All right. What I'm going to do is bring it right back over here. We'll start dropping it down. I want it to tilt in this direction, and we'll just bring her down nice and slow. Get that off that handle. Up. That yoke fell out. It's all right. There we go. Take our straight edge, put it in here. It's hinging exactly a third in on each side. That's our shim at. Nope, won't go in anywhere. So that tells me that anywhere that's in there is less than 1/1000th. I'm sure there's some irregularities in there. If we were to blue this up and compare it to the straight edge, we would see the high points. That one looks real good too. Yeah, wow. I am very pleasantly surprised. These ways look good on both sides, and I'm tempted that while I got this thing apart, to go ahead and re-scrape these. All right, so just looking everything over, again, there's our lever that moves that little clutch piece in and out where it engages to that worm. And I was thinking that the worm actually went onto a lead screw on the cross slide here, but now that I got it upside down, I realized that this is actually a smooth rod that's keyed. So there's a worm, you know, on the other, basically on this this shaft on the inside, there's a worm in there that engages with the worm gear in the middle, and then the worm gear then drives the cross slide. So basically it's using it as a means to convert that motion 90 degrees. The worm gear looks like it's in pretty good shape. I don't know what the worm looks like. We may see if we can open that up and take a peek at it, but more than likely it's fine. This other hole here, there's just a shaft that goes through it. It's just spinning through that one. That's the one that goes to the tailstock that raises and lowers the tailstock. So it has nothing to do with the whole compound or saddle here at all. So it's just a through hole there. Now up here in the end, there's a brass nut. This is what powers the saddle back and forth. There's a big lead screw that feeds into that. I can look at it and tell that it's worn and got some issues. Is it bad enough to replace? Probably not. I may go ahead and knock this thing out. It looks like there's a tapered pin here that's holding this in, and this should press out. And I don't know, we'll take a look at it and inspect it real good. See how it screws up onto the actual lead screw that is powering, and make a decision on whether we make a new one. I'm not gonna make a call on that right now. The other thing I see that I definitely want to do while I got this is this lever, again, that drives that little clutch dog. It has been broken in the past and brazed back together. The brace job I think is a good job, but it's not very pretty. I may take this off and just kind of grind that a little bit to make it look more like the original part. It looks like they did it on the machine rather than taking it all off. So now that we got this more or less taken apart anyway, I can easily get that off. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of, it's cosmetic is all that is. But everything else looks pretty good. Hi guys, I've had a little bit of time to sit here and look at this and study it a little bit and kind of in my mind come up with a game plan on what I want to do with it. And I think that as long as I've got this thing apart, there's no reason to have to take all this stuff apart again down the road if I decide to rebuild this machine. And this saddle and cross slide, it can all be rebuilt completely independent of the rest of the machine because of the way this is built. And you know, basically you want to, when this is rebuilt, you want to make sure that, you know, these cross slides here are parallel to these cross slides, and you know, everything's flat and basically in those two directions. And then the table will be scraped in to match these right here. And that is, you know, it's really independent. Even if the ways over here have got some issues, it's not going to matter as far as this is concerned, because this, you know, as long as this is all scraped in flat, parallel, everything else, it's going to match. Even if we come back and do some reworking to this bed later on, it's still going to match up just fine. So game plan, first off, like I said, I'm going to get this outside. We're going to get it cleaned up. It's going to get hit with a pressure washer, degreaser. It's just nasty right now. I don't want to get it cleaned up. I will probably go ahead, like I said, knock this bushing out, take this gearbox apart, just inspect everything, fix that handle, and while everything's apart, I'm going to start the scraping process. And it's going to go like this. We're going to start with these surfaces down here. These are the ways that is actually on the cross slide. But the reason we're going to start there is that these need to be flat. They need to be in the same plane with one another. And it basically just needs to be flat over the whole part. Fortunately, my surface plate is large enough that I can, with the gantry crane, come and set this whole piece down on my surface plate and be able to glue up all of those surfaces all at one time, and make sure everything's just flat with one another. So we'll scrape in what's now the bottom. This is actually the top of the saddle. Once that is done, we will scrape in these, and these will have to be done as far, I have to use straight edges to glue them up, but I can also, once these down here are flat, parallel, everything else, I can put this on the surface plate, and with some parallels that I've got, I can come in with a dial indicator and I can check it for to see if, if it's running up and down. I can actually check across them to make sure everything's parallel in all directions as well as flat. And once I get all that done, then we can put the saddle back on the machine and we can scrape in the ways on the table, and we'll just be matching. We'll be using basically the surfaces down here that we started on. That will become our straight edge that we will master against to blue it up and get it worked out. So everything here looks like, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy scraping, but it's not like we're moving thousandths of an inch. Everything is less than a thou that has to be done, which is very in the range of what we can do with scraping. It's gonna be some work, but it's not gonna be terrible. Now, I haven't inspected those ways up underneath that table over there. That is a little bit of an unknown, but I'm fairly confident we can take care of it. If I flip it over and it's a train wreck, worst case is I can get that reground on the top and bottom and turn around and scrape it in. But it's going to take a little bit more time than what I was really wanting to put into this at this time. But at the end of the day, it's going to save me a lot more time down the road to just go ahead and do this, do it right, and have this part done. And this is very common when a lot of times when you rebuild a lathe, you're not going to re-scrape in the bed. It's not practical to. The wear may not be bad enough, but you can re-scrape in the saddle and the cross slide and really make a huge improvement to the whole machine. And that's what I'm kind of hoping I'm going to be able to do with this one. And again, I think it makes sense. So that's what we're going to do. That's going to be a wrap on this one. I'll get this thing degreased, pressure washed, cleaned up, painted. Once we kind of get it ready for scraping, we'll come back and go through this rebuilding process with you on this and hopefully get it knocked out. And hopefully this thing won't drag on for too terribly long. This is going to have to become one of my priorities though, because again, I need the machine to kind of go forward on some other projects in the shop, but let's do it right. Let's don't skimp on it right now. Let's go ahead and just do it right and get this done. I think it's the right thing to do. And that's what I'm going to do. That's my decision. So there you go, guys. With that, that's going to be a wrap on this part. We'll bring you back when we're ready to start scraping this in, and we'll probably have some other projects in the shop going on to get kind of mingled in there as well. So with that, thanks again for watching. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comments, leave them down below. Thumbs up, greatly appreciated. It helps out in the analytics a lot. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when new videos are posted. And as always, guys, a big, huge thank you to all the Patreons and supporters of the site out there. Because again, I could not do what I do if it was not for the support that you guys give me. You guys are awesome. I got a great audience out there, whether you're a giver or just a watcher, both ways. It's been a lot of fun getting to know folks and interacting with people over the years. So anyway, thank you very much. Catch you on the next video.